Welcome to the Natural Health Podcast, where we bring awareness of sustainable health in the business hustle space. The Natural Health Podcast is perfect for the high-performing, business-minded individuals who want to work with their biochemistry to achieve optimal health. It's Friday, which means it's time for friends sharing facts about health, business, and overall success. In today's episode, we talk to Christy Tagye, who will talk about breathing, in particular respiratory muscle weakness. Christy's leadership in healthcare space spans over 20 years and a variety of settings. She has excellent skills in rehabilitation, home care, senior living, behavioral and correctional health care, focusing on strong clinical practice, utilization, policy and practice to drive superior outcomes. Repeatedly recognized in her leadership with awards and great responsibility, she credits focus and attention on building trust leadership with customers and teammates to much of her success. She is constantly building strong teams, driving organizational growth and excellence by focusing on support and encouragement of each individual's strength and growth potential. Her longtime personal motto of approaching others through is conduct with kindness and respect, established with the strong and sustainable team and customer relationships. Christy is an absolutely outdoor enthusiast with a passion for travel, exercise, and exploring the nature. Christy is a 4-time Ironman finisher and, more importantly, participates in an incredible life journey with her husband, Alan, 5 children and 2 grandchildren. Welcome to the Natural Health Podcast, Christy.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
You're absolutely most welcome. So 4 times Ironman, Ironwoman finisher, is that right?
Yes. I always say you have to be careful who you hang out with, who your friends are, because you start to do things that they do. And these crazy friends of mine signed up for an Ironman. The next thing I know, I was doing it too, and actually absolutely fell in love with it. I retired from it, but caught myself a few months ago signing up for my 5th.
So, another one.
Yeah, so hopefully in September of this year, I will be competing in my 5th Ironman event. Yeah.
So what does that entail? What does it entail, the Ironman challenge?
Sure. An Ironman is a total of 140.6 miles with swimming, biking, and running. So by the time you finish your 112-mile your swim and then your 112-mile bike, then you're off to do a marathon. So it's a lot of fun with approximately 2,000 of your closest friends, and anybody can do it. And I really mean that anybody could do it.
I love that. I love how you put the 2 fun and the 2 together in one sentence, which a lot of people wouldn't, but I love that you have done that.
It really is. It's a lot of fun. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it tests the human body and the human mind, what it can actually do to push itself, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Well, we got you finally on this podcast today. We tried so many times. So I'm so excited that, we're going to be sharing this absolutely amazing information about breathing and the breather and so forth. But before we get into that, I want to find out a little bit about yourself. I wanted to find out what have been the key turning points in your life to where you are now. I mean, you've done a lot with just your bio talking about in regards to being a businesswoman, but what have been the key turning points to get to where you are at now?
So probably the most important thing that happened in my life that made me determined. I'm a very determined person. And really that happened for me when I had my first child, my first son. I was very young, and up until then, you're doing what kids do and getting through school and having fun with your friends. And when I found out I was expecting, it wasn't about me anymore. It was about this person, my person, and I was going to be responsible for this little life. And that just turned everything around. I got very serious about doing and becoming and not settling and not waiting around for someone else to do something. And then in college, the next thing that was another push for me is I had an opportunity to adopt. So I adopted my second son. Still a single mom, in my senior year, he was born during finals and was a colicky baby. So he was quite a challenge, but is just such an incredible human being. So just my children have always been my driving force. And then I had 3 more children, and I wanted to be a good example for them in every aspect. So that really drove me to do things that I probably never would have done before. Becoming an occupational therapist, it was what I decided I wanted to do when I was in 8th grade, when I was young. But I didn't know what that meant schooling wise. If I had, I would have thought I couldn't do it. So I did it, and then was amazed at what I had accomplished. Not because I'm amazing, but just determination is so vital to success. And then in my professional career, just really having had wonderful mentors along the way who are willing to teach me to be humble, teach me that success is always about learning, taking chances, even when you don't think you're smart enough or good enough, trying anyway, because what's the worst that could happen? You're not successful the first time around. So all of these things really were incredible life lessons and the building blocks that reinforced, yes, I can. Yes, I can continue to do this. Yes, I can try this new thing. Work in corrections? What? Of course I can. Why not? Why could I not do that? So just lots of people in my life that were cheering me on, that had expectations of me, that needed me to be successful. And then eventually I learned that even without someone else needing me to be successful, I could be successful by asking questions, by being a sponge, by researching, by letting other people be the smartest person in the room. That was a big lesson for me. I didn't have to know it all. So I talk like an old lady because I'm getting there. If I'm lucky, I will get to be very old. And I think being an occupational therapist when I was young, I learned to listen to the older people that I took care of. They gave me very good advice that I learned to follow very early on. And so I'm at this point in my life and having so much fun and learning so much constantly.
Yeah, wow, what a journey. I absolutely love that. It was your first child that was the turning point in your life. I mean, many other turning points in your life too, but that was the catalyst of it all, where it was kind of like, wow, this life isn't just about me. Just because I get food doesn't mean the end of all. The other people around me need that too. So I love that, you switched around and being a single mom and then adopting. Wow, that is, put my hat off to you. Absolutely. And then another 3, that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. And then going to being an occupational therapist. So you were an occupational therapist, and then what happened in your career? Where did you end up?
I still am an occupational therapist. I still hold a license and haven't treated in probably a year, but very much enjoy that patient hands-on. But I took a job and had an incredible mentor who believed in me and gave me responsibility that I never thought that I was capable of, at least at that point in my career. And that really taught me the importance of mentoring others and allowing yourself to be mentored. So when that person left the organization, probably a year or more later, she called me up and said, "What are you doing?" "Working." And she said, I'd like to bring you over to my team over in this field, still in healthcare, but in very different, nothing to do with the occupational therapy that I had been doing and responsible for. So I said yes, because I knew I enjoyed working with her, and worked there for quite some time. And then another company, she brought me to another company that was completely different. And so along the way, I had the good fortune to be able to learn from many people and to have many more mentors along the way. And one of the things that I have found that I think has contributed to my success is the role that other people have played in my life in agreeing to be my mentors and reaching out to these people, even 5, 10, 15 years after we've worked together, to say, hey, I just wanted to catch up with you and I wanted to get your input. What do you think about? And luckily, these people are gracious enough to give me their input and guidance and support and push. These people will push me and take me out of my comfort zone. And so that really forces growth, even when you're uncomfortable, when you trust people and you'll listen. Some really cool things can happen. Very, very unexpected, very good things.
Yeah, it's the best when it kind of falls on your lap, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. As long as you're open to it.
Yeah, I love that. I have to be open to opportunities, and mentors are so important, absolutely important, like you said. And you touched upon the word success a number of times. What I ask a lot of people on this podcast is, what does success look like for them? So what does success look like for you, Christy, right now?
I will tell you, that has evolved, but I think even I knew it before I knew the word for it, I understood that it's what I wanted, and that's contentment. So success for me isn't the fanciest car or the biggest house or the best clothes. What I've learned is being content is like, it's winning. So, I don't know if you know, recently in the United States, somebody won a $1 billion jackpot. Wow, right? How exciting. But if you win that and you're miserable, what is that? What does that mean? Contentment where you are right now, for me, that's success. And I continue to work on that, but I'll tell you, I'm a lot more content than I've ever been in my life. But it's in listening to my elders and what my patients in particular, and my grandparents taught me along the way to really be grateful for what you've got in this moment, even when it may not be the best of circumstances. You can usually find something to be grateful for.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty deep. I love that. I absolutely love how you've put it together, and about being content, and you mentioned about being in the moment. It's so important that way. And it's got to do with today's topic, breathing, right? It puts us straight into the now. Like they say, there's no such thing as the past. There's no such things as the future, because you're always in the now. There's always the now. So what you've said is absolutely amazing. And that's what success is. And listening to mentors, listening to other individuals. And this is why I do what I do. This is why I interview individuals and professionals like yourself. So not only myself, but everyone else that's listening to this can learn and can take that gem out of this podcast. And I hope there's so many gems in this podcast. I can already see it. There is going to be a lot. So let's talk about today's topic, which is all about breathing, right? Particular shallow breathing, which I know myself, I've done that so many times, and I still do that, where we're just not taking that full breath. But we're going to be talking about the effects it has on the body, right? It is my understanding that shallow breathing may cause issues to our body. Can we go into a little bit more detail about this?
Sure. So shallow breathing, sometimes we talk about it in terms of hyperventilation. You see people, especially when you get anxious. Think about when you're feeling anxious. You may not even realize it. You start to breathe a little bit more like this. And what can happen when you start to hyperventilate, have shallow breathing, is there's a drop in CO2 levels. So sometimes, especially when I was younger, everything had to be very concrete. And I thought a lot of what we're talking about today was kind of like hippie, yoga, frou-frou stuff that I kind of like now. But there is a real physiological change that happens in the body when you do that short breathing. And so sometimes people experience symptoms such as headaches, fatigue, anxiety, a lack of focus. And that can be a direct result of really shallow, quick breathing. And right now, as you and I were talking about before we started the podcast, is our current situation, right? In these days and times, a lot of us are wearing masks for a lot of the day. So even if you don't have anxiety or you don't typically hyperventilate, when you put on a mask, sometimes just having that physical barrier over your face just causes a change in breathing. So it is really important to understand how important proper breathing is. And so we can talk about that as well.
Yeah, a lot of individuals wouldn't really link things that you've mentioned, like headaches, fatigue, to breathing. They'll think, oh, my headache must be due to something wrong with my head, or, nervous system or something. They wouldn't really go, oh, I've got a headache because I'm not breathing properly. So it's really interesting that you pointed that one out in particular, and fatigue also.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we know is if you change your breathing patterns, if you happen to be breathing like that, or you feel like your breathing isn't right, it's okay. You can change it. And one of the things at PN Medical that we did was really look at what is proper breathing strategies. And if I'm catching myself in that more dysfunctional pattern and I'm uncomfortable, I've got a headache, what are some of the things that I can do? And so we talk about several things, and we'll talk about proper breathing. But one of the things is if you're wearing a mask, and I have my mask, I'm a Florida Gator, so go Gators. If I'm wearing my mask, and I'm also a lot more attractive with a mask. So if I'm wearing a mask and it's hot and I'm breathing, and that tends to make me a little bit more anxious. I'm in a crowd, I'm breathing faster. When you get to a place where you can take your mask off, if you need a break, go outside where you can be socially distanced and you can be safe, and take 5 quality breaths. And when we talk about 5 quality breaths, what we're talking about is an inhale, a slow inhale, and a slow exhale, and then a pause. And so when you do that slow exhale, if you can breathe in for a count of 4. So it's, and then out for a count of 6. And then a 2-second pause. When you do that, you're really changing the physiology inside you. Not only that, if you know anything about the nervous system, you're actually impacting the autonomic nervous system, which is responsible for, our fight or flight. When we start hyperventilating, we get into that shortened breathing, right? We're prepared to fight if we need to, or run off if we need to. Most of what we do does not require us to be in that fight or flight state. So when we catch ourselves getting worked up and being like that, if we can do those 5 quality breaths, that slow inhale through the nose, that slow exhale through the mouth, and that pause, then you can really reset. You can really reset yourself. And I really encourage your listeners to try that, just to give it a try, to do that breath. And when you're breathing, you hear people talk about diaphragm breathing, that belly breathing. So instead of breathing up here in our shoulders and our shoulders going up and down, we're breathing from our bellies. And you can't see, I'm patting my belly. But the way you can know if you're doing this correctly is to put your hand on your belly and take a deep breath in. So if your listeners want to try that, we can do that quality breath together. And what I'll do is I'll breathe in and I'll use my hands to count. And remember, we're going to breathe in for about 4 seconds, breathe out for 6, and then pause for 2. And I don't know if you know, but when we pause, It's really when we take all of the pressure off our heart, and our heart gets a little bit of a rest. So, and there's a lot of gas exchange going on. So if you're ready, if folks will put their hand on their belly, we're going to do a 4-second inhale, approximately, 6-second exhale, and a pause. Okay? Let's do it. And you would repeat that 5 seconds. And then if you have to put your mask on, put your mask back on and go about what you have to do. This isn't just for after you wear a mask. Anytime you sort of need that reset, you need to recalibrate. It's a really good breathing strategy just to sort of bring things back and in control. It's also a good strategy for you want to get settled down and go to sleep, or you want to go from work to going home and you want to leave work behind. It's a really simple strategy that you can use whenever you feel like you just sort of need a reset.
Yeah. Just doing that breathing exercise with you just straight away put me in that parasympathetic mode where I'm like, that's all good. Like, it's all good. And that was only like 1 or 2 rounds. So,
right.
and I myself understand the benefits of breathing 100% because I've tapped into them in the last few years. And like you said, the shallow breathing, like that was me with the anxiety. That was me with, there's so many listeners that are exactly the same. It's them with the breathing. It's them with the anxiety. They just, and they don't realize it. And then they stop and they go, have I taken a breath today? And they, because it happens automatically, because the automatic nervous system happens automatically that we don't even think and go, wow, have I taken actual deep diaphragmatic breath today? Have I done that? And it can release so much. And I love that you mentioned that. I love that you touched based on the diaphragmatic breathing, the belly breathing, because we don't do that, do we?
No, we do it when we're born. We do it when we're kids, but at some point, that changes, and we absolutely need to relearn. We sort of need to get that back. So I tend to be a skeptic. So I would say to my fellow skeptics, when you notice that you're in that state, like we're talking about, where you're feeling anxious or you've got a headache or you're just exhausted, instead of reaching for that aspirin, instead of reaching for that Tylenol or whatever, try the breathing. Maybe you do need an aspirin or a Tylenol, but try the breathing and see if that changes. And try it. Do 5 good breaths. We deserve it. We deserve to take care of ourselves and to listen to our bodies and try and give it things that it might need, like proper oxygen levels, maybe proper carbon dioxide levels.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny that you say that. Oxygen. Well, as we know at the moment, oxygen's free, right? So
for the moment.
Yeah. So for the moment, it's free for most of us. And, why not make the most out of that? It's all around us. And, we are impacted with here in Australia, we've got the cities that are jam-packed and some of the air isn't as beneficial for us as some others. For example, I went into Melbourne City for a getaway and I spent a few nights there, and I could definitely tell. I came back because I live about out regional, and I came back and I was like, my breathing, I was shallow breathing for after that because I just couldn't get a proper breath in. It was all the pollution and everything. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting how that impacts our breathing also.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So look, in regards to, you touched base on diaphragmatic breathing, but I wanted to find out a little bit more with PN Medical. You guys talk about respirational muscle weakness. Mm-hmm. What is that, and what are the side effects to our body? If you can go in a bit of a detail in regards to that.
Absolutely. So respiratory muscle weakness is a weakness like arm weakness, leg weakness. I had surgery on my shoulder just about a week ago. It's pretty weak. And so when I'm able to, I'm going to have to strengthen that to get that back. So it's the same thing with our respiratory muscles. They are muscles and they can be strengthened just like your bicep muscles or whatever other muscles people like to work. And everybody can benefit. So these muscles are obviously very important to breathing. They include your diaphragm, which is the largest muscle of respiration, and it's attached to your spine. So it has a lot to do with posture. You have intercostals, internal and external intercostals that are part of it. You do use these muscles. They're part of your respiratory muscles. And you can see that. I'll demonstrate using the breather, which is what we use to strengthen those muscles. When you have weak respiratory muscles, some of the things that you can see is one of the biggest things for people is fatigue, dyspnea. So that shortness of breath. You see it in a lot of diagnoses, such as COPD, also known as emphysema. I'm asthmatic, so sometimes people with asthma may have it. People who have had strokes or have Parkinson's or any kind of neurological disorder can result in weakness. And so when we think of weakness, we tend to think of arms and legs, and we don't think of the respiratory muscles. So it also, the respiratory muscles also impact swallowing. So people can have difficulty swallowing, and respiratory muscle training can impact that depending on the reasons. So way back in 1980, Peggy Nicholson, who is a retired respiratory therapist, wanted to find a way to better impact her patients. And she could see this problem, but we don't have these little teeny weights that we put on I'm pointing to my ribs, and point it into our rib cage and inside our body. We don't swallow them and lift them with our diaphragm, but we can target them. We can target them and strengthen them. Now, that helps patients who have been sick, who have had strokes, certainly people who are recovering from COVID, but also for athletes. It's gotten to be very popular among athletes because one of the effects of respiratory muscle training in athletes is delaying the onset of fatigue. So this is another reason I'll tell you that I signed up for the Ironman again, because the last time I did one several years ago, I wasn't familiar with respiratory muscle training as an athlete, and had not used it. I signed up for a half Ironman about a year and a half ago, and I had begun doing respiratory muscle training. Throughout my training, I can't say that I noticed some big, huge change all at once, but in my race, I was on the run. So the very last part of it, I was halfway through the run, and I thought, I must be doing terrible, because at this point in the race, I should be really tired. This should be really hard. And it wasn't like a walk in the park, but I wasn't where I should be, where I thought I should be in terms of being fatigued. So I picked it up because I didn't want a terrible time. So I finished my race, and a half Ironman is 70.3 miles. And this particular Ironman was, instead of an out and back on the bike, it was a point-to-point race. And it was 2 miles longer. So it was actually a 72.3 mile race. But I still PR'd, which I beat my best time by 7 minutes.
Wow.
I did nothing else different. And certainly you can have a course with really good conditions one day that makes you a little bit faster, but not by 7 minutes.
But not 7 minutes.
No. So I came back and I made all my friends, my training friends, get one too. And then I really was curious whether I could see those same results in a race that was double that. So I'm doing a little bit of a test for myself. But studies have shown swimmers to decrease their swim times, for people to be able to go beyond what they were able to do before, to increase running times. And there is another physiological change, the metabolic reflex. I won't go into detail, but it interrupts that. So it allows you to exercise longer. It interrupts the flow of blood that typically goes from the exercising limbs to the major organs. It allows you to have that blood flow continue to those exercising limbs. So it delays that onset to fatigue. That's originally not why this was developed. It was kind of an unintended consequence that, it worked. So why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't we? But more recently, sort of back to what's going on with the pandemic, we really are looking at what can we do to arm ourselves with better health. So most of us, even healthy individuals, we don't exercise our respiratory muscles unless we know about it. So our baseline strength is here. And if you can't see me, I'm just holding my hand up. If we do respiratory muscle training, I'm holding my other hand up, our respiratory muscle strength is now here. So if I get COVID or the flu, or I have bronchitis and I end up being limited in my activity, I lose some strength. But instead of being here and losing strength and bottoming out, maybe I'm here and I come down to here or even lower, but my baseline is stronger. So for me, that's really important. As an asthmatic, I've been blessed not to have had COVID, and I hope not to. But if I get it, I'm going to give myself every chance that I have to have stronger muscles going into something like that. And of course, my parents get one and use it. And so I guess maybe you want to see what it looks like.
Sure. But before you do that, I just wanted to show the importance of what you said about the respiratory muscles. Like, we go to the gym and, we pick up those weights and we train that, but we forget about the respiratory muscles. And now you're saying there's a way that we can train them. Like, that is amazing. Like, that to me is just mind blowing, because if I can breathe better, I understand how the human body works. I understand that we need oxygen throughout all of our organs, tissues, cells to function at an optimal level. So I love that you pointed that key point in there, that we need to train the respiratory muscles the same as we would train any other body part.
Absolutely. And you know what, here's the thing. I don't give myself too much of a hard time for not having done it before, because I didn't know about it, right? I wish I knew about it sooner, because as a younger occupational therapist, I would have had my patients using it, because I wrote goals all the time for them to improve what we call activity tolerance, which is the same thing as endurance or aerobic capacity, but so that they could do things like take care of themselves or go out with their spouse to a restaurant. They can go and enjoy life and not just be so fatigued. But I didn't know about it now. I didn't know about it then. I know about it now. So how can I make a difference now? For myself, I can make a difference by incorporating it. It's so easy. Spend 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening, max. And for any patient that I ever would have treated in the future, that I would ever treat, I would absolutely recommend it if they had, dyspnea, because it's one of the biggest things that impacts quality of life. And I'll tell you, when people use it, no matter what other gains they make, the one thing that they say is, it gave me back my life. I feel so much better. I can get up and not just get dressed, but now I can have coffee with my husband, or now I can go to church, or now I can go get my hair done, or whatever that thing is that's important to them. And that, to me, that's my soapbox. Go make a difference. Make a difference in other people's lives and in your life. And it's so easy.
Yeah. I absolutely love that. And let's show our breathers.
Okay, I'm gonna show you mine. Well, I've got two. So you show them yours, and I think I might have too much light. Maybe that's a little better.
Yeah.
So the one I'm holding that has my name on it is the original breather. So yes, so this is the one we use more in medical settings. There, if you look at the one we're holding up now, this is the breather fit. This is the athletic version. So this we see typically more in the healthcare setting. It's a little bit easier to use. So if somebody's sick, or first we want to say, don't use it if you have an active upper respiratory infection. You need to clear that infection first. But this is where if you have breathing difficulties, you would start more with this one. And then this is the one that is about 2 times the difficulty of the original breather. And this is if you're healthy and you're well and you just have never exercised those muscles, you probably can start on this.
For anyone who's listening, the white and blue one, if you ever go on the website, the white and blue one is the original breather, the one that's used for individuals who may have, who may not be exercising as much, who may have asthma, chronic COPD and things like that. And then we were holding up the black one, which is the fit one, breather fit.
Yes. And you can't see, but I'm wearing my breather fit shirt today.
I love it. Where's mine?
I know. We need to get you. We absolutely need to get you one. But these are so easy to use, and that's what I want people to understand. So I tell people, it's not, don't buy it if you're not going to use it. Don't waste your money, because then it's just a piece of plastic in your hand. Surgical or medical plastic, but don't bother. But if you buy it, use it after you brush your teeth. I'm all about routines and habits. If you're going to start something new, you have to create a habit for it to stick. So once you make the commitment, yeah, I really want to see if this thing works. I want to see, you're like me, you're a little bit skeptical. Decide when you're going to use it and think about something that you do twice a day. What I do twice a day is brush my teeth. And when I use this, I want to have a clean mouth, because you're blowing your hot breath into this thing. And there are ways to clean it, and you absolutely should clean it. But that's when I choose to use it, is after I brush my teeth. It's not hard. There are dials, and if you're listening, what I'm doing is showing on the camera the difference, the dials. There's the exhale dials on one side and the inhale dials on the other. And that's where you change the resistance. So we always tell everybody, start at 1 and 1. So you've got yours, right?
Yes, I do.
Will you do this? Will you do this with me?
Let's go.
All right. So set your breather on 1 and 1. And then what you're going to do when you use your breather or breather fit, you're going to diaphragmatically breathe. So that means putting your hand on your belly to begin with, so that you can really kind of check yourself. And when you breathe in, your belly actually comes out. So you want to, I'm going to show this, it's not very flattering, but for people who are watching it, I want you to see when you breathe in, you see my hand come out, and when I breathe out, so I encourage people to do that so you can really check yourself. You'll still see, you're going to see this change, but you want the breath to be coming from your belly. So I'm going to show you what it looks like, and then we're going to practice one together.
Let's do it.
Okay? So you want to be careful when you use it, not to bite down on it, because it just creates too much pressure on your jaw. Okay? So it's got these nifty little grippy things where you can put your fingers on the top and on the bottom. And you don't have to, but it just keeps you from doing this. Because what I'm doing is blocking off where the air comes in and out. That's a problem, because then you're really going to have resistance. So it kind of looks like this when you use it. So if you notice, there's a little pause between inhale and exhale. And I'm doing it forcefully. So will you do 3 breaths with me?
Let's go. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Ready? Inhale. Pause. Exhale. Pause. 2 more. Inhale. So when you do it, when you're doing the exercise, it's a real forceful breath in and a forceful breath out. Remember, you're exercising. Now, if you want to use it to calm yourself before you go to bed, you can set the dials at the lowest setting and do real long, slow inhales and exhales. And then it'll have more of a calming effect. But for strengthening, you want to do that forceful inhale, pause, forceful exhale, and pause. We do that 10 times and then repeat it 10 more times. And then if you can, repeat it 10 more times. If that's easy for you, you need to turn the resistance up. You need to do it so that after you finish those 10 reps, if you had to do 2 more, you could do 2 more. But if you could do 5 more, you need to turn it up.
And you're not supposed to go, right? That I did on the first one. I did a mistake. I went, you're supposed to like push it through. What I meant by that, if anyone isn't listening, is not supposed to blow up your cheeks when you're pushing it out.
That's absolutely right. You don't want to puff your cheeks. So sometimes that takes practice. And I've worked with people where it took several sessions for them to learn how to do it without puffing their cheeks. But really focusing on that diaphragmatic breathing. And if you can't quite figure it out, a couple things you can do is lay flat on your back or recline, put something on your belly and watch it rise and fall. Or opposite, lean over on your hands and knees or lean over on your desk and exhale and inhale and watch your belly come out and in. So sometimes it takes practice, and I'll tell you on our website at PN Medical, that's P as in Peggy, N as in Nicholson, medical.com, there are videos that we have that takes you through how to do it properly, teaches you diaphragmatic breathing, separate from using the breather. It teaches you how to use your breather, and then it'll teach you how to clean your breather, which is very important as well.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much for going through all that with us. I mean, you know, and the thing that I came across this before I even came across you and anything. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to buy it. But the buying decision on this was, 1, I don't have to charge it. 2, it's not electrical, it's not USB or anything like that. So I can literally don't have to worry about it. Don't have to charge it. I don't have to do anything. It's just manual. You just move the things up and down. And I love that you can actually, it's not just a one thing. You can adjust it to make it harder, to make it lighter, depending on your day also. And I just love that it's so simple. It's so little. And then I bought it and it came in and I was like, okay, I'm like, this is too simple. Like all of these biohacks out there, they're like, you know, connect this to your brain, all that, which is absolutely amazing. And I love that. But the thing is it's literally, look, like I can just hold, it's tiny. And like I bought it and I started using it and I was like, similar to what you said, I was like, not really seeing a huge difference. But then I went for a run because I haven't been running a lot, kind of stopped running and ran again and stopped running. And I actually went for a run this morning and I've been using this and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm actually not fatigued as I would be after that run. And it's so, I'm not a runner at all. I don't even, to be honest, I'm like, no, I don't like running. But I try and do it once or twice a week. I know I'm talking to you. You're like, I love it. That endorphin rush, eh? But yeah, it actually does a huge difference. I know in my cardio level, it does a huge difference. And I'm just able to go that further, you know, push that further. And I know this might be talking about athletic performance, but besides that also, it's also helped with the breathing, the deep breathing, and just also look, we can all sit there and do deep breathing, but sometimes it's really good to have something and a routine to get you into that breathing, and remind them, being like, hey, that thing's down. Oh, maybe I should do my 10 breaths, So,
well, you know what I love that you just said is that it's so simple. One of my mentors, who happens to be my father, says, I was talking to him one day about how brilliant this person was that I knew, because he could turn anything into a formula, and I couldn't keep up with him. I was so impressed. And my dad said, Christy, sometimes brilliance is simply achieving something. It's in simplicity. And to your point, it's almost ridiculously simple. You don't need a lot of fancy things. We do have an app, and it's great because it takes you kind of through the timing of the breathing. It's looks like a pair of lungs, and it says inhale and they expand, exhale and they collapse. But you don't need anything but your breather and a commitment to do it twice a day to really feel a difference. So that was a great point that you made.
Yeah. And the benefit that I got of it, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get these guys. I got to get them on this podcast to talk about it, to share that information with it. So I love that I found you guys, outside of anything. And then I got you on this podcast to talk about it. And breathing is such a topic that people need to know more about. We need to know more about breathing. I mean, we do it every day, every single second, even when we're sleeping. I mean, if we're not doing it, we may have issues, but, we're doing it all the time. But what I wanted to is, now we've spoken about the breather and we know what it looks like. We know there's the breather fit, and then there's the breather, the original. Why would someone use the original one? What would, like, someone that's listening, the people that are listening right now, what are some states of the body that people may have to have benefit of, and what are those?
So it's different conditions, like we talked about before. So if uncertainty, if you're not sure and you're not comfortable, start out with the original breather. When you turn the dials all the way up on the original breather, it's not easy. It's not like it's super simple. It's not easy. It's a good workout. But certainly if you have a cardiac issue, or if you have respiratory issues, start out lighter. There's nothing wrong with starting out easier and building up, because even if you're healthy, likely you haven't been doing respiratory muscle training. And if you have, that's fantastic. Keep doing it, because then you end up with an endurance effect also. So if you're not sure whether or not you should use it, talk to your doctor. There are very few reasons why you shouldn't use it. If you have an inner ear infection, you probably don't want to use it because you'll feel that pressure. If you have intracranial hemorrhage or something along those lines, talk to your healthcare provider, because they may say, be a little bit more cautious, use it less forcefully to start out with. But it's, if you're just not sure, it's a great place to start. Breather Fit will be there for you later. And like I said, having it at the highest settings is not a walk in the park. It definitely is quite a challenge.
Yeah. And what are the age groups for people to use it? Can anyone use it?
Yeah, anybody can use it. Most people don't do studies on very young people. There haven't been a lot of studies, but there have been, and pediatrics absolutely do use it. There's a lot of reasons why kids might use it if they have weak oral musculature, if they have difficulty coordinating breathing and swallowing, if they happen to be very low tone or weak. My sister actually is a speech language pathologist who's been using the breather for a long time, who has used it with her children for kind of self-management. Like if they're getting worked up and getting upset, they will go grab their breathers and do very slow breathing, kind of like that autonomic nervous system reset that we talked about. Instead of using it for strengthening, using it more in a calming manner. So lots of, especially pediatric speech language pathologists, use the breather with a pediatric population.
Yeah, I love that. I've seen that. And that's absolutely amazing. I can see the benefit of it. So in regards to, is there any evidence based behind the breather? What is the evidence behind the breather? Is there any studies that back it up or anything along those lines?
Yes, absolutely. And instead of trying to quote the studies, what I would say is, if you go onto our website, pnmedical.com, and you hover over Breather University, there's a drop-down link, a drop-down menu, and one of the things is our science blog. And on there is a whole bunch of information on the breather, but also on respiratory muscle training that's been done throughout the world. So you can look up, I want to learn more about sleep apnea and respiratory muscle training. You can look that up. I want to look specifically at COPD. You can look that up. Spinal cord injuries. You can look that up. One thing you asked me a minute ago, and I should have said, with pediatric population also, there are kids that use it for performance, for, soccer players or lacrosse players, or surfers are using it. We have some we have some children who are surfers that are using it to sort of get an edge on the competition. So I would really recommend that if people want to understand how it's used, why it's used, what is the evidence behind it, what is the science behind it, definitely check out that website. There's a lot of information. And if you have questions, we are here. We love talking to people.
Absolutely love that. And I checked out the website and I saw that. And that there is clearly, before I got it, I looked all that up and I looked at all the research and everything. So yeah, there's lots of information there in just, respiratory breathing itself, and then the benefits of the breather. So I absolutely love that. So what I wanted to find out, I think we answered the question on how does the breather fit the secret weapon to reaching your full potential. I mean, getting a 7 minutes plus 7 minute time, record time in your half Ironman is just absolutely extraordinary. I think that in itself just says it all. I mean, and that's the only thing that you've changed. And I'm just keen to find out in regards to what's going to happen to your full Ironman, how much you're going to hit.
Now that I've said it, I really have to perform, don't I?
I know.
No pressure.
Your personal record. But the thing that we also have to understand is that we age every year, right?
Yes.
And according to, people, as we get older, we lose our strength, we lose our endurance, we lose this, we lose that. But that may not be so the case if you keep up with your body, right? If you actually train the right body parts.
Yeah, absolutely. There are some things that we're not going to be able to change related to aging, and good, because I don't want to be 21 years old again. But there are some things, you're talking about biohacks, there are some things, and respiratory muscle training is one of those that you can use to absolutely impact your performance. Now, I'm not going to continue to race at the same levels for the next 10, 15, 20 years. But if I can incorporate something that I didn't do before that is showing me that has an impact, I'm going to do it. I know I've said it multiple times. I'm going to say it again. I am a skeptic. I would not have believed this if I had not tried it. And I probably would not have signed up for another Ironman just to see if it would make a difference. But I'm so curious. Now I have to. Now for me, I want to see if it will have that impact.
Yeah. Me too. I'm keen. But one other question I want to ask is, what is the benefit of improving oxygen delivery to our muscles? And how can breathing help athletic performance? I know we've touched base a little bit on it. Are you able to add a little bit more information onto that?
Well, back to what we talked about before, when you are doing respiratory muscle training, you're improving the efficiency of your breathing. And when you're practicing proper breathing, there's a lot, I won't go into nasal breathing, but there's a lot of benefits to that. That I will tell you, before I did respiratory muscle training, I could not run and keep my mouth closed and run for any length of time. I can do that now, and that's interesting. But really, that delayed onset of fatigue is sort of the secret ingredient, so to speak, in performance, and altering that metabolic reflex that diverts blood from your working muscles back to your major organs, to be able to interrupt that a bit and allow your working muscles to continue to go longer, to go harder longer is, I don't like exaggeration, but it's kind of like, you find that fountain of youth, and it's not that it's a fountain of youth, but it's sort of, for a lot of people, it is the secret key to their training, where, they were doing everything before, they were great athletes, and all of a sudden they've done something that's pushed them a little bit further. Respiratory muscle training can be that little bit of a secret ingredient that pushes you to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is I know we spoke a lot about, athletes and things like that. But what we need to understand, as you would understand, as a business professional, we need our mind to function and to focus and to, push through and make things happen. And unless we're breathing properly, that is not going to happen. We're going to be fatigued. We're going to be brain fogged. We're not going to have that oxygen going to all of our external cells that we require. So even that will push your performance up, not just as an athlete wise, it will push your performance as a business professional.
Yeah, you make such a good point. And that's something we've also received feedback on, and work with executives and people who just want like another edge in their professional career. And it really is something that, like you said, it helps you to be a bit more alert. Right before you and I were talking, I was giving feedback to someone who was asking about how I use it. And I said, I get up early to do my exercise, and I use my breather fit, and it sort of like awakens my system. And I don't mean like I'm going from awake or asleep to awake, but it just really, it gets things moving. It makes me more alert. And you're increasing that oxygenation to your entire body. And we know the brain is so sensitive to oxygen. So there has been a lot of interest and a lot of personal anecdotal evidence to improving professional performance. And again, a lot of that has to do with how you're breathing and being mindful of that. So why not? I mean, it's not hurting anything to try it and just see if something works for you.
Yeah, that's exactly such a good point. That's exactly why I jumped on. I was like, it's reasonably priced, for the price, the value is just extraordinary, absolutely amazing. That's my belief anyway. And I've seen results.
We think so.
Yes, I believe that too. So you spoke at the start, you spoke about some practical tips for the audience to incorporate to assist with their breathing in regards to what's happening at the moment. If people have to wear masks, step outside, take that breath. We've done a few breathing exercises. Is there any other practical tips that you can bring up that we can incorporate to assist people with their breathing?
Well, yes, a couple things. What I'm going to say is stay tuned, watch our website, because we're going to be adding what we call situational breathing strategies that, like I said, I've got to transition from work to walking into my family, or I've got to go from being at home and going about my day to talking to somebody on a podcast. How do I upregulate? How do I settle things down? And so we're going to have those very soon available on our website. And they're very important strategies that really can impact your life. And a lot of it is well, they all are changing the way you're breathing. So I'll say stay tuned for that. What I do want to add about the face masks and the breathing is it's not just take it off and do those breaths. We recommend before you put your face mask on, take those 5 quality breaths. And what that does is that just gets you into the good rhythm of breathing. And when you put it on, do 5 more quality breaths. So you're not getting into that dysfunctional breathing pattern. When you take it off, do those 5 breaths again. And if you need to step outside, if you're someone like my daughter who has to wear a mask for 8 hours while she's working, take breathing breaks, right? They give breaks for smokers to go outside and smoke.
I was going to say a smoko break.
You need to think about that. Yes. So we need to take our healthful breathing break, go outside where it's safe, or even in a break room if you're able to, and you've got, you're socially distanced and you can safely take off your mask and do that breathing. We really highly recommend breathing breaks, so much so that we actually created posters that are also available on our website to put up in break rooms to remind people to do that healthy breathing.
Yeah, I love that. I think my perfect day would be if I was in a city or somewhere and I'm walking around and I just see people just going, like just breathing in and out, like, oh my gosh, look, that's amazing. Like we see people taking smokes or just sitting there on the phone, just that breathing. I think so many things would change in our world, the decision making, our focus, our relationships, everything, like so much would change if we just took that deep breath and, we're breathing properly throughout the day.
I agree. And you know what? Let's not just do it individually for ourselves, but let's do it with our families. Let's make a practice of teaching our children, of breathing with our partners. As silly as it may sound, try it. Just try it and see how you feel.
And on that note, you actually connect with the individual that's next to you on a deeper level. If you're breathing the same way, your vibrations become and your energy goes the same way, which means you're in sync.
Yeah.
And you just feel closer to that person.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. We could just keep going on and on and on and on. I know. We've come to the end of this podcast, but I absolutely love it. But I'm going to ask you one last question to finish off. I ask all my guests in a natural health, as this is the natural health podcast, what is your best kept natural health hack?
I don't know if you'll believe me, but now that I've really learned about breathing, it's about breathing, and probably maybe more so for me being an asthmatic, and having had a period of my life where I was very sick. By properly breathing, I can regain control in almost any situation. You really can regain control or take control where you may feel out of control, or just change your mood, change your state of being. It is worth the investment. It is worth the time. I highly encourage excellent breathing. It just feels good.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. I love that you took that as your natural little health hack. And I mean, you do it every day. You do the breathing in the morning, you do the breathing at night, and you've seen results, which is absolutely brilliant. And I have so myself, which is absolutely brilliant. So people that are listening to this podcast are like, oh my gosh, I love this breathing stuff. How can I get in touch with you? What can I get access to? Where can they find you?
Yep. So people can go on, like I said, pnmedical.com. You'll find so much information there. But if you need support, if you have questions, we have an 800 number. I don't know how available that is for you guys, but you can reach us. The best way, I say you guys, for people who are in other parts of the world other than the United States, but that number that we have, that toll-free number is 877-414-4449. But also we have an email address. It's care@pnmedical.com. you can send an email there and you could say, I heard Christy talking about this. Where can I find that? I want my clinicians on my team to learn about this. Where can we all go together to learn? I want my kids to learn about whatever your question is. I have to say I'm blessed to work with a group of people who are passionate about this, who care about it, who really feel like what we know is valuable and we want to share it. We've developed so much teaching and training for free. We want people to learn it, to understand it, to experience it themselves. We're here for you. Let us know how we can help.
Yeah, beautiful. And I'll put all that information in the show notes anyway, so that everyone can access it, get in touch. If you have any questions, get in touch with me, get in touch with Christy, get in touch with PN Medical. Yes. Breathing is just, it's a life changer. It's one of the biohacks that everyone's talking about. That's just readily available to you right now. So Christy, do you have anything else to say before we close off?
No, just thank you so much for inviting me. It has been a pleasure speaking with you. I've enjoyed every minute, and let me know what I can do to help.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. We've come to the end of the podcast. And remember, the missing link between failure and success is your health.